Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Richard Moglen, and welcome back to a weekly Watchlist video sponsored by MarketSmith. And as always, we'll be running through my focus list for this upcoming trading week and talking about both the fundamentals as well as the technicals. And keep in mind, everything is very market dependent at this point, and my current view is we're still in a market correction. Let's actually go over to the NASDAQ composite very shortly here and look at this chart. You can see we are below the declining moving averages, the 21 EMA, as well as the 50 SMA, and also the 200 SMA. And we're just forming out a flag above Monday's low here, which is a pretty critical level here. And I'd love to see some fall through to the upside after Friday's strong close. So ideally we get back above the 14,000 level and start kind of building here, forming some higher lows. That would be ideal, and start our way back towards all-time highs. That would be very constructive and set up a lot of opportunities and charts. And bringing back my focus list, these are stocks that are showing relative strength and are bucking the overall downtrend, at least in the short term. And I'll be watching to see if they can potentially lead once the market, if the market resumes the uptrend. So first up, we've got Apple, very strong earnings, very strong action as well on Friday, back above the 50 SMA. And I'd love to see it kind of build out some inside days and then make its way back towards these highs right here, form a little bit of a pivot and a spot where you can manage risk. And looking at the earnings, the sales, and the margins, you can see they're actually decelerating the past 4 quarters, which is definitely something to keep note of. And looking at the annual EPS estimates, you can see they're only supposed to be up 8%, although revisions are up, which is a good sign. Next up, looking at the fund ownership, a gradual increase over the past 2 years and a whole bunch of high-quality funds in there as well. So we'll have to see whether this basically continues to the upside. I think it would be constructive for not just Apple, but the entire market if it does so. And I'd love to see it kind of flag out sideways on declining volume and then reconfirm to the upside and basically form out a spot here where you can manage risk against that higher low. So that is Apple. Definitely need to keep an eye on, especially in the larger cap space. And it's actually part of a leading group as of this moment. Moving on, we've got AMR, definitely a smaller, more speculative name, so keep that in mind. Great earnings and sales in the most recent quarter, earnings up 218%, sales up 93%, and really strong estimates for this year, up 163%, and estimate revisions are up as well. Look at the fund ownership, you can see a gradual increase over the past few quarters, but it's down over the past 2 years, and there's no high quality funds in this stock at the moment. Looking at the chart, you have a really strong prior uptrend, I believe up almost 300% from this base right here. Then it formed a nice cup shape, failed breakout. You did have a very choppy market in this environment, and now it's kind of forming things back above the 50 SMA, back above the 21 EMA, and you've got a clear pivot right at this level. So I'll be interested to see if this kind of rolls over and breaks below 60 or manages to build things out and even break above and make its way back towards all-time highs. So that is AMR, and once again in a leading group, which is very key at this moment. It's in the energy coal group. Moving on, we've got BROS, Dutch Bros, a familiar name to many of you, I'm sure. And overall, you can see really strong earnings, sales, and margins in the most recent 4 quarters. Decent estimates for 2022, up 50%, although estimate revisions are down. Already a lot of funds invested in the stock and 3 high-quality funds in there as well. And look at the chart, you can see it had a nice push early last week and is back above the 21 EMA and showing some relative strength. But it remains to be seen whether it's ready. It's still within its institutional due diligence phase after a pretty quick advance phase right here. So definitely want to keep an eye on to see if it can kind of build, break through 50 and make its way through this 55-48 pivot and start a potential trend back towards all-time highs. But definitely one I've got my eye on, and the fundamentals are pretty strong as well. Moving on, we've got DE, Deere & Co., and overall very strong earnings, sales margin in the most recent 4 quarters. Decent estimates for this year, 2023, earnings up 14%. Estimate revisions are up as well. Nice increase in fund ownership and 4 high-quality funds in there as well. And as for charts, forming this nice long-term stage 1 base, and you've got a clear pivot at this high right here, as well as this pivot just below the stage 1 pivot at 393 flat. So I like to look at this chart. It's back above a rising 21 EMA, 50 SMA, and 200 SMA, and is showing relative strength versus the overall market, as you can see from this trend right here in the RS line. So I think this line is really key for kind of finding the stocks that are bucking the trend right here. You want to see this be in an uptrend for any stock you're even considering as of this moment. Moving on, we've got LLNW, really strong earnings, sales, and margin in the most recent quarter. It's not supposed to be profitable just yet, and you don't really have a nice trend in fund ownership and no high quality funds. There's really just a play on the relative strength that's shown as of late, and this is kind of a play off the bottom, so keep that in mind. But it is above a rising 21 EMA and 50 SMA, and is showing nice action so far. So looking at the stock, you can see it's right at this pretty significant level, pretty much around 4. It did find support there on Friday, so you could play a 2-2 reversal through this high, and most likely this would be a swing trade or even a day trade here because we are in a very quick and volatile environment, and is also a pretty volatile stock. So you do have the 3.85 pivot, which could be support as well if we do kind of get a gap down. Maybe look forward to kind of reverse off that level and offer a good low risk entry point. But that's kind of how I'm viewing LLNW, and definitely one to keep an eye on, although it's not in a leading group as of this moment. Next up, we've got Lockheed Martin Corp, which is forming out a nice long-term base, stage 1B base. You've got a pivot right here on Thursday of last week, as well as a standard pivot at 396.99. Looking at the earnings, sales, and margin, you can see pretty much flat growth over the past 4 quarters. Not much growth expected this year either, and actually declining fund ownership over the past few years, and only one high-quality fund invested into this stock. As for chart, we already talked about this pivot right here. I love to see it just kind of float sideways, drift sideways on declining volume, and then have a nice reconfirmation through these highs. So definitely want to watch. And overall, looking at a weekly, you can see a nice longer-term base, and this is a pretty significant level right near 400. Moving on, let's talk about MDRX, another stock showing really strong relative strength in this type of environment. Really strong earnings the most recent quarter, and not much growth expected in 2022, but estimate revisions are up, and you've got a decent increase in fund ownership, although no high quality funds in there just yet. Looking at the chart, you can see a nice powerful move. You got a breakout here on very high volume, the largest volume in quite a while, and pretty much a flag going sideways right above 20. I love to see it just kind of go sideways above that round number and kind of build off Friday's strong action and make its way through this pivot into all-time highs. So that's MDRX, definitely one to have on your radar. Moving on, we've got MUR, Murphy Oil Corp, really strong earnings, sales margins the most recent 4 quarters, decent estimates for 2023, and pretty much flat fund ownership and no high-quality funds invested into this stock. Overall, it's sitting right basically at the top of this prior base. You've got a pivot right at this area as well as pretty much right here. So I'd love to see it hold above 30, and it is showing relative strength versus the market over the past few weeks. So definitely want to have on your radar here, and we'll see if it can reconfirm and break out towards all-time highs. Moving on, we've got another oil name, OAS, and you can see very strong earnings sales margin the most recent 4 quarters. Great estimates for this year, and estimate revisions are up, and you've got a decent increase in fund ownership, although no high-quality funds invested into this stock as of this moment. Overall, a nice trend from the stage 1 base. Then it had another consolidation, and it's pretty choppy here near this pivot, although you do have a 2-2 reversal through Friday's high. Nice upside reversal action off this pivot, and we'll have to see whether it can break through 140 and start to trend once again above the key moving averages. But definitely showing relative strength as of this moment, as you can see from the relative strength line and the RS rating of 99. Moving on, we've got REGN, Regeneron Pharmaceutical, decent earnings sales margins in the most recent 4 quarters, although annual estimates for this year are down 32% and estimate revisions are down, but you've got really nice growth in fund ownership and 4 high-quality funds invested into this stock. Overall, this was actionable on Friday through these highs. Nice push here, breaking out of this short-term range, and basically it revisited this pivot and found support right at that level as well as 600, and I love to see it kind of fall through and break through that 50 SMA and make its way towards 650 and the top of this consolidation, but definitely acting well and showing relative strength, as you can see from this relative strength line. So that is REGN. Keep in mind you do have earnings in 5 days. Next up, we've got SG, a recent IPO, similar price action to Bros here. You've got a consolidation and a potential start of a move up the right-hand side. Really strong push here on volume on basically the start of last week. RS rating only at 15, but keep in mind this is an IPO, and we pretty much sold off since that IPO day. Looking at the sales, you can see decent growth here, 162% and 73%, and you can see it's not profitable and it isn't supposed to be this year. As for fund ownership, you can see already 95 funds owning shares and 3 high-quality funds in there as well, which definitely adds to my conviction. So watch for a push through 30, as well as these highs, as well as this level, 36.33. Moving on, we've got VRTX, and it's been a while since I've been looking at this chart. You can see looking at a weekly that we've been in a nice long-term downtrend here, but we are starting a push up the right-hand side of this base. And looking at a daily, you can see really nice action on this day, breaking through pivots. So I'd love to see some consolidation right near 240 and then reconfirmation to the upside, managing risk right at that swing low. Decent earnings sales margin, the most recent 4 quarters. Pretty much flat growth for 2023. And you've got nice growth in fund ownership and 2 high quality funds with positions in this name. Last up, we've got ZIM, one of a few shippers that is acting quite well. Really strong earnings sales margins the most recent 4 quarters. Estimates for annual EPS are actually down for 2022, but estimate revisions are up. And you've got nice growth in fund ownership, although no high quality funds in there just yet. And looking at the chart, you can see it's above a rising 21 and 50 SMA. It's definitely showing relative strength at this moment. And I'd love to see some consolidation right near this pivot. And then you can manage risk right against a swing low if you do want to get involved. So overall, that is a run through of my focus list. Keep in mind, we're still in a corrective phase. So many of these are still very, very early. We'll have to see how things develop. And the overall market, if we get a pop next week or continue to sell off, will kind of dictate the price action for most of these names. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please go ahead and take the time to leave me a like down below. It really helps me out and my channel. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one every single week. And have a great rest of your weekend. And I'll see you guys in future videos. Thanks.